5-Watt World is supported in part by TruFire. Learn, practice, and play with TruFire. Hi, this is Keith Williams. Welcome to 5-Watt World. We're interested in helping you get the most music from the least gear. When John Mayer's first record, Room for Squares, was released in 2001, I was still pretty deep in my jazz coma. 20 years where the CD player in my car was full of Miles Davis, John Coltrane, and Pat Metheny trio records. But you can't have been even mildly aware of the music scene and not witness the meteoric rise of this pop phenom. And also, I remember the generally pleased surprise in the guitar community when, after Continuum, he seemed to turn aside from pop songs to embrace his blues-obsessed roots with his trio. Any number of people I respect have posited the idea that Mayer might be the last and most recognizable guitar hero of the past 2 decades. You just don't see him standing at a microphone, not also playing guitar. So he seemed a logical choice for this series. Some of you will agree, and others might not. But learning most of this from scratch, I can tell you that it's a very interesting story. As I'm spending this month concentrating on the Stratocaster, it seemed the perfect time to tell it. So if you'd like to know more about the electric guitars he's used, then stay tuned, because this is the 5-Watt World short history of the guitars of John Mayer. If you enjoy our videos, make sure to subscribe. If you've already subscribed, grab a hoodie or a Stomp preset pack to support what we do. And to become a bigger part of 5-Watt World, sign up on Patreon for the Friends of 5-Watt. The links are in the description. John Clayton Mayer was born on October 16, 1977 in Bridgeport, Connecticut, a middle child of 4 children. His father was a high school principal and his mother was a high school English teacher. After seeing Michael J. Fox playing guitar in Back to the Future, Mayer became obsessed with the guitar. When he turned 13, his parents rented him an acoustic and he began taking lessons. Then someone in his neighborhood gave him a cassette tape of Stevie Ray Vaughan, and that sent him in a blues direction that included Buddy Guy, B.B. King, Freddie King, Albert King, Otis Rush, and Lightning Hopkins. John's first guitar was a 90s Fender Squier Stratocaster. When he was 17, he had a medical scare that landed him in the hospital for the weekend. He said in interviews that during this experience, it was that the songwriter in me was born. Penning the first lyrics that night, he left the hospital. The first major electric guitar upgrade was a 1996 Stevie Ray Vaughan Signature Stratocaster. This guitar would take him from his last high school years through the 2 semesters he'd spend at Berklee College of Music. Interestingly, this guitar would shape much of John's preferences for his later signature Strats, so it's good to review the specs of the original. SRV's number 1 was a guitar put together from assorted vintage parts. It was a 62 neck, a 63 body, and had pickups from a 59. There was a left-handed tremolo as a tribute to Jimi Hendrix's playing right-handed Strats upside down. John's later custom guitars would use many of these features, including the 9.5-inch radius fingerboard of the SRV and the thick rosewood fingerboards of a 62 style guitar. John would modify that guitar over time, replacing the bridge and sanding the finish off the back of the neck. He also went so far as to engrave his initials into the back of the body while he was at Berklee. One would assume he did that to discourage the guitar from being stolen when kicking around Boston. Stress at home from his parents' contentious marriage led him to pour more and more time into his playing, so that when he was ready to leave high school, he already really wanted to pursue music full-time. But his parents persuaded him to go to the Berklee School, and he'd spend 2 semesters there before leaving and moving to Atlanta in 1997. He dove into acoustic pop music and spent years honing his craft in the scene there. An appearance at the South by Southwest Festival in 2001 yielded recording contracts with first Aware and then Columbia Records. His first 2 studio albums, Room for Squares and Heavier Things, both went multi-platinum, and in 2003 he won the Grammy for Best Male Pop Vocal for his single, Your Body is a Wonderland. John's career was right and properly launched. Though known as a Stratocaster guy, it's interesting that there is a Novak's Expression fan-fret guitar featured on the cover of Room for Squares. He's said to have used the guitar to play Neon, both in the studio and then live with the band. John also used a new 2000s dark blue Strat that he'd used during that Room for Squares tour, with a flame maple neck and a rosewood board. Before recording Heavier Things, John acquired an early 60s Strat that is then featured on the album cover. The assumed dating is based on the spacing of the 12th fret dots, which were moved closer together after mid-63, along with the spaghetti logo. After the success of Heavier Things, John was seen with the first of a long line of Fender Custom Shop master-built guitars. Master-built guitars are those built by a single top builder in the Fender Custom Shop. The first was the charcoal frost metallic that was used as a backup on the tour in 2003. He also had an Inca Silver with a red stripe on that tour. These each had the racing stripes we'd see on his later first artist-run guitars. And finally on that run, John also had a newer 2000s SRV Stratocaster. We're sure it isn't the earlier SRV, as the grain in the body is different, and it has a black pickguard. At this time, John also had a Rick Turner Model 1, made most famous in the hands of Lindsey Buckingham of Fleetwood Mac. He'd used it to play Bigger Than My Body. He'd bring the guitar back in 2009 to play Half of My Heart on the Battle Studies album. An immediately recognizable guitar, the Jimi Hendrix Monterey Strat, appeared during the end of the Heavier Things tour. Perhaps more notably to guitar players, it was also used during the John Mayer Trio tour. He seemed to favor the guitar for playing Waiting on the World to Change. In 2004, John took delivery of one of the limited run of 100 master-built SRV No. 1 tribute Strats. The guitar was introduced at the 2004 Winter NAMM show and were designed and built by master builder John Cruz. It was an exacting replica of the No. 1 guitar the SRV used throughout his career. The serial number on each guitar was listed as JC for John Cruz and simply numbered 1 to 100 after that. SRV's guitar tech Rene Martinez worked closely with Cruz on the design and specs for the tribute guitar, and of course Martinez would go on to tech for John Mayer. And now we come to the guitar most often associated with Mayer, his 2004 Custom Shop guitar, built by master builder John Cruz, nicknamed Black One. There are videos released by John documenting the build that included Mayer getting his hands dirty, doing some of the sanding, and even spraying a coat of black paint during the initial build. According to Mayer, the concept for this guitar was to have a guitar with a minimum amount of paint to capture some of the resonance of the guitars played by Stevie Ray Vaughan, Bonnie Raitt, and Rory Gallagher, where the paint had been worn off the guitar over many, many years of hard touring use. The guitar has an alder body, a thick C-shaped neck with an African rosewood board. All specs for the guitar were taken directly from the Stevie Ray Vaughan replica signature guitar, including a 9.5-inch fretboard radius, 6105 jumbo frets, standard 25.5-inch scale, and a 1.65-inch width at the nut. The guitar was also fitted with a set of Shaler die-cast tuners with white pearloid buttons, like those that Stevie Ray's tech Rene Martinez had installed on Stevie's No. 1 to help deal with the heavier strings that SRV used. A 2004 Fender Stratocaster Crashocaster that Mayer played on a few shows with Sheryl Crow was also seen. It may have been part of a run of guitars that John Crash Matos did for Fender, or a direct custom build ordered by Mayer. Transitioning from his touring to the support of 2003's Heavier Things, Mayer embarked on his Guitar Heavy Trio tours, and his collaborations with his blues heroes, B.B. King, Buddy Guy, and Eric Clapton. He released the live album Try with the trio in 2005. During the tour around the live record, Mayer used a custom shop Strat built for that purpose with the word Try on the face of the guitar. It's assumed that this was built to specs of the artist signature model that came out in the summer of 2005. The only difference was the reverse headstock neck tribute to Jimi Hendrix on that guitar. During that time John Mayer was working with the trio in 2005, he bought one of the Gibson Custom Shop Eric Clapton Crossroads ES335s that were built then. It was part of a very limited run of 250 guitars that sold out in record time. Mayer's used the guitar many times from that point on, including the 2010 appearance on Clapton's Crossroads Festival, where he played a cover of Bill Withers' Ain't No Sunshine. The guitar is, of course, a detailed replica of Clapton's original '64 Cherry Red ES335 that was sold in 2004 for an amazing $847,500 to support the Crossroads Rehabilitation Center in Antigua. Mayer also used a very rare white Strat from 1980 with a reverse headstock that is believed to have been part of a batch of prototypes for a hoped-for run of Jimi Hendrix artist guitars that never got built. You can see the guitar on the Where the Light Is DVD. During the recording of Continuum, Mayer had a master-built John Cruz 1962 Relic Stratocaster. Mayer would use the faded sonic blue guitar with the trio to play the song Gravity live, and it's believed that he used the guitar to record the tune for the album as well. Meticulously modeled on a 62 Strat with the exception of a 9.5-inch radius fingerboard, that's more a laminate-style fingerboard than would have been used in 62, it's perhaps one of the first to use the John Cruz designed master design pickups. I reached out to TruFire to be my sponsor because I've used them for years. With over 2 million users worldwide, whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced level player, TruFire has lessons to enhance and inspire your playing. Get 35% off using the promo code 5watt35, or like I do, sign up for the All Access Pass to use the entire TruFire catalog. I really like TruFire, and I think if you give them a shot, you'll like them too. Sign up now to start your journey to being a better guitarist. I'd like to thank TruFire for their support in making this video. Continuum was Mayer's biggest record to date, winning Grammy for the tune Waiting on the World to Change. There was a raft of custom shop Stratocasters brought out on the road to tour to support the album. Reportedly used on the tune Vultures from Continuum was a gold leaf Strat that Mayer said was the quackiest Strat of all time. It has perhaps the most distinctive out-of-phase type sound. He claimed that Vultures really didn't work on any other guitar for that reason. The gold leaf Strat order may have been prompted by a gold leaf guitar built for Eric Clapton by Todd Krause in the custom shop in 2005. Like the Tri-Guitar, John Cruz built Mayer a white guitar with the word Continuum in caps repeating on the guitar's face in silver print. John played the guitar during the summer of 2007 tour before giving the guitar away via the Fender website. It's very much the artist guitar specs, but it was the first time that they used the new Big Dipper pickups designed with a very pronounced scooped mid-range. Around that time, Mayer had acquired a 1961 hardtail Stratocaster that makes its first appearance on stage in the summer of 2007. Mayer said he'd gone on to use the guitar to record the tune Something Like Olivia on the 2009 Born and Raised album. At the 2007 Crossroads Guitar Festival, John was seen playing an SRV lipstick pickup replica guitar. A limited run of these guitars had been built by Charlie's Guitar Shop in Dallas, but Mayer's guitar seems to have been put together for him by the Fender Custom Shot team. Also in 2007, Mayer was seen using what appears to be either a late 59 or 60 Gibson Les Paul Jr. double-cut guitar. He used it a few times in the summer of 2007, including a TV appearance on Good Morning America, playing Dreaming with a Broken Heart from Continuum. During the opening for the 2009 release DVD Where the Light Is, that documents Mayer's work with the trio, he's seen playing a natural finish 1977 Gibson L5 guitar. He sits high above Los Angeles along the side of Mulholland Drive with a 2-rock amp, leaving us to wonder, where's the electricity coming from? Mayer also used a vintage Guild Starfire 4 ST on Where the Light Is on the song Come When I Call. This is Guild's semi-hollow double-cut model with a 22-fret neck, solid spruce center block, and a Tune-o-matic-style bridge. The next album, Battle Studies in 2009, would be a return to pop with a world tour following. Around that time, Mayer said on his Periscope internet feed, "It took me 10 years more than 10 years, 15 years, to really be able to put a Strat down and play something else. My favorite guitar right now is this Les Paul SG." He was first spotted playing this 1961 Gibson Les Paul SG at the Beacon Theater Show on November 17, 2009. It took him a while to settle into being comfortable with it, but by the time he was recording Battle Studies, he'd really bonded with it and used it to record the song Edge of Desire. As noted elsewhere, he likes to use the guitar he used to record on the tune for the record out on tour, so he would end up playing this SG on the subsequent supporting tours for that reason. The tune Wildfire on Battle Studies was recorded using a Duesenberg double cat guitar. As was his way, he then used the guitar to play it live on tour. The guitar features a semi-hollow alder body with a laminate maple top, rosewood fingerboard, tremolo bridge, and a P90 domino pickup in the neck, and a vintage voice humbucking pickup in the bridge. Also in 2009, John started using a Fender La Cabronita Telecaster to perform the song Perfectly Lonely, again using the guitar he'd used for the tune on the record. The guitar was built in the custom shop with a maple neck and a 9.5-inch radius board, 6105 jumbo frets, 2 TV Jones Filtertron pickups, a fixed Strat-style bridge, and Spertzel tuners. Mayer recorded the song Heartbreak Warfare on a Jeff Beck Stratocaster and has a Broken Heart logo in black on the face of the white guitar. It has the distinctive features of a Beck signature guitar with a 22-fret neck, Wilkinson roller nut, and Fender noiseless pickups. Several controversies in the media sent John into relative seclusion in 2010, and he began working on his Born and Raised record. An issue with his vocal cords then delayed the album even further to the May of 2012 and canceled the following tour. He began performing again as a singer in January of 2013 following the release of the album Paradise Valley, which has a much more country-influenced sound than his previous work. John would then use a vintage 1952 Telecaster live during the Born and Raised World Tour in 2013, though he said he'd owned the guitar for 7 or 8 years before that. During that tour, John began using a 1964 Strat that he'd acquired more than 10 years prior, and had even used during the Continuum record recording process. This would become John's main stage guitar for 2 or 3 years. The ears clear from the 12th fret spacing and the screw placement on the pickguard. This is very notable because when John gets around to designing the Silver Sky guitars, we see much more vintage-style specs. Playing a cover of the Grateful Dead tune Friend of the Devil around that time, Mayer was seen using an alembic Jerry Garcia tribute guitar. It bears many of the traits similar to Garcia's custom Wolf guitar. Mayer has gone on to use the guitar on live gigs, including an appearance on Live at Letterman in 2013. In 2014, John was seen playing a couple of maple neck Strats that seemed to match the specs of the Eric Clapton signature model: black finish, 8-hole pickguard, noiseless pickups, and a 22-fret maple neck. But 2014 would end up being a transition year for John as he announced that he was leaving his long-standing association with Fender. Soon afterwards, John played a PRS NF3 at the Eric Clapton 70th birthday concert at Madison Square Garden in 2015. According to John, it was the first PRS he'd ever played, and it was an eye-opening experience for him. 2015 saw John out on the road with the Grateful Dead spin-off band Dead & Company. This is one of many reunion bands put together by surviving members of the Dead after Jerry Garcia's death back in 1995. John's guitar needs for this gig saw him collaborating with the PRS private stock group to develop his Super Eagle guitars. Based around a McCarty 594, this guitar shares many traits with the eventual Super Eagle production guitars. In 2015, we also saw the Super Eagle Prototype 3. By the time the Prototype 3 was done, John has been publishing pics of it on his Instagram feed for a full year before he used it live on stage in 2016. John took delivery of the first production Super Eagle guitar in 2015. The guitar featured a body of sandwiched curly maple with mahogany sides, a maple neck with rosewood fretboard with 24 frets, and a scale length of 25.375 inches. This is a scale length that's longer than the typical 25-inch scale of a PRS, but shorter than the standard 25.5-inch scale of a Stratocaster. There are 2 specially wound 5815 JM pickups with a custom wound narrow field JM pickup in the middle. There are mini toggle switches for turning on each pickup, though it was widely rumored that John played almost all the Dead & Company gigs using the middle pickup alone. In 2015 and 2016, we began to see hints of the 3 single-coil pickup guitar that John was developing with PRS. This would be the PRS Silver Sky. Though now accepted on its own merit, at the time there was a huge outcry from Fender enthusiasts that PRS had crossed some sort of line by creating such a Strat-like guitar. This sort of ignores the fact that PRS had many 3-pickup and bolt neck guitars in their history long before any of this went on with the Silver Sky, going all the way back into the 90s. John began using the Silver Sky in 2017, and by all accounts it succeeds in its mission to take inspiration from the early 60s Strats that John has always favored, being something of a mix of his early SRV artist guitars and that vintage 64 he'd used more regularly in his recent years as his main instrument. The first run of production Silver Skies were issued in 2018 with rosewood fingerboards, but subsequent runs have been done with maple fingerboards as well. Many interesting design tweaks to the PRS standard models were made with the Silver Sky. but most evidently, a reverse headstock and new-style vintage tuners were there. Specs for the Silver Sky include a 22-fret neck, rosewood board with a vintage 7¼ inch radius, and a 25½ inch scale length. Interestingly, this is unlike John's earliest Fender signature guitars and was likely influenced by his use of that vintage 64 Strat for many years prior to the change to PRS. Has an alder body with 3 single-coil pickups simply named 635 JMs. It should be noted that the development of the Silver Sky, particularly the steel tremolo bridge, bled over into the line, adding snap to the custom 22 CE bolt neck model as well, that I've always admired. And interestingly, though not officially recognized by PRS, the pickups have seemed to have evolved over time as well. This is just as likely due to changes in the availability of materials for pickup manufacture as it is changes requested by John. Anyone that's followed the PRS history, and Paul Reed Smith in particular, knows that over time he always is seeking improvement from each batch of guitars. 2020 saw PRS issuing an import version of the by then wildly popular Silver Sky in the Silver Sky SE. With the cosmetic clues and similar specs to the US-made Silver Sky, the import guitar varies in that the fretboard radius is 8½ inches rather than 7¼ of the vintage original style. There are 3 pickups labeled as 635 JM-S. The guitar has a 2-point tremolo instead of the 6-point tremolo of the regular Silver Sky with steel saddles and has been a big seller in the import market for anyone looking for something a little different in the 3 single-coil pickup style guitar. So what do you think? Is John Mayer a modern-day guitar hero? As I said at the beginning, there's no question that this might be debated. Anybody that's as popular in the songwriting world as John, really, it's tough to be then recognized as a guitar player alone. But Mayer moved to Atlanta in 1997, and my friends Rick Beato and Dave Honorato were already deep in the music scene there by that time. They saw John perform many times back then, and when I asked Rick, he didn't hesitate to say, "Oh, he's a good guitar player, all right. He always has been." So though I was in a jazz coma back in 2001 when he burst onto the scene, while researching this video I've listened to all of Mayer's records repeatedly and in order, and I have to agree with Dave and Rick. There is a specific style to his songwriting, but you can also hear him stretching out and sounding a little bit like some of his heroes from time to time. The tune Born and Raised has just enough Neil Young in it to keep it echoing in my head, and I've been playing it and singing it in my living room this month. I'm getting ready to share it on the monthly song circle the good folks of Syracuse invited me to join. For me, there remains nothing better than to come across a good new tune and then share that with other folks holding guitars. If I forgot your favorite John Mayer guitar, please mention it in the comments for everyone to enjoy. I need to once again thank John Cordy for his permission to use snippets of his playing on both a vintage 64 Stratocaster and a PRS Silver Sky guitar. I'd like to thank Carter Vintage for their permission to use clips of early 60s Stratocasters that come through their doors in the last few years. Most importantly, I need to thank all of you that have gone to the store to buy a hoodie or a Stomp preset pack. And in particular, I want to thank the friends of 5 Watt on Patreon. You folks are 5 Watt World. I just make the videos. Until next time, this is Keith Williams. Thanks for being a part of the 5 Watt World.